Well, hello everybody, and welcome to what is the final live of 2025. It's a bit scary that the year has gone by so fast, and of course, there we are. So you didn't hear any of that. What I was saying is welcome to the final Q&A of 2025. And it's scary how fast time has gone this year. It's just like swung by, if that's the right terminology. So the reason that this is the last Q&A of the year is I'm heading off on Friday. So that's what, 5 or 6 sleeps away. Heading off to Sydney, a couple of days in Sydney, catching up with some friends and bits and pieces. Then we're heading on Oceania Riviera with Mark from Sydney all the way to Papeete, an 18-night cruise. And then heading back from Papeete via Los Angeles back home, literally getting back on New Year's Eve. So of course, I'll be posting when I'm away, particularly on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Gary Bembridge on Instagram, also the Facebook page, Tips for Travelers. And if you're a patron or channel member, I will be posting kind of those kind of on-cruise updates. For those of you who are interested in Patreon, I've got a link there. If you have a look at that, patreon.com/tipsfortravelers, it'll tell you all about that there. So just a reminder, write the word question in with any questions you've got, ideally in capitals. Actually, I don't think there's any questions coming in yet, which is interesting for the final Q&A. And I was going to show you one other thing. What was I going to show you? So this week's video is out as well, if you haven't seen that. It's Who Deserves a Crown? So it's part of the series around the different classes of cruising. So I've done one for the mass resort lines, which was surprisingly not very popular in relative terms. Then I did one on premium cruising, so Holland America, Princess, Cunard, and so on, which was very popular. And then the ultra luxury one is out. So depending on how that does, the one that's missing so far from the kind of the collection, as it were, is the one on small ship luxury. So that is the Viking, Oceania, Azamara, and so on. So I will probably do that because I enjoy doing them, and certainly I know they help people even if they're not necessarily massively watched. So let's have a look. Not very many questions coming in, so it's going to make it very easy, I think, although the questions are probably coming in now. So Hetty's here, which is great. Quite a few people talking about it's got a lot of snow. So Paul, 11 inches of snow. Jeff, cruising for one. Also saying it's very cold. Mark is here, which is great to see, from Irvine, California. So I guess you're still in California, not heading off to the Philippines or wherever, which I think you might be doing for Christmas, not 100% sure. Cruising for one, asking, no stop in Vegas. No, we're not heading via Vegas this time. We're just going via LA and heading. So we decided we just got to kind of head home afterwards because I need to get ready for the group cruise. So a couple of weeks, once I'm back, I head off on the group cruise. So I want to make sure that I'm well on top of all of that before we head off. So let's get stuck into the question. So your title has changed, I guess. So Christian 2, I have an Explora Venice to Athens in May. Nice. They changed Santorini visit to Milos after my payment. Not happy as Milos equivalent. I doubt it. So I have not been to Milos, but as you probably know, Santorini and the Greek government, or the Greek government and Santorini, placed restrictions on the amount of ships and the number of people that can call there per day, which meant that quite a few lines had to change itineraries after they were kind of went on sale. So I haven't been to Milos, but I would be very surprised if it is, because Santorini is unique. It's in the caldera. You've got you've got the 2 cities on the top, the 2 towns on the top of the caldera. So it's very unique, obviously, and it's very iconic. I don't know Milos. So if anyone's been to Milos, maybe you can leave some comments in around that. And Explora, though, should be great to experience. Boys of Boca here, good to see you. Always here, always lots of good questions. Considering a Nile river cruise on UniWorld, thoughts? Not interested in Viking or Amma. Neither appear to be akin to ultra-luxury ocean-going. Riverside also looks beautiful. So Riverside, I don't think operates on the Nile, but I guess you're probably talking more generally. Riverside does look amazing. Of course, as you probably know, those are the old crystal ships. I haven't been on it. I've met a couple of people. In fact, someone messaged me quite recently who I met on when I was on the Crystal, I think it was, and they had a great time on Riverside. I would really like to go. They do actually do, surprisingly, considering they're quite expensive, quite a lot of solo deals. I know there's another question a little bit later about river cruising. I'll come back to that. So Boise Boca, in terms of UniWorld, one of the challenges with doing a Nile river cruise is most of the ships actually kind of operated by Egyptians, and they tend to lean a little bit into kind of slightly quiche / overly themed. So I haven't been on New World, but Helen and Rich have been visit with us, and that ship was very blingy, which all Uniworld ships are, and quite themed. So I would strongly encourage you to take a look at their video series they did about Uniworld. So they talked to the ship. They said a different Four Seasons to I did on Amaway. They said actually what I think is a nicer Four Seasons is part of Uniworld. Certainly if I was doing it again, I would actually, and I know you're not interested in Viking, I would probably look at Viking. The ships look very nice, more contemporary kind of ships. And they do have some unique docking points, which avoids some of the side-by-side docking in some places. But I would strongly look at Uniworld. They are, as you say, a great line. Have a look at Richard and Helen's videos, because they are, that overly blingy kind of decor might put you off. I don't know. But you're right. In terms of ultra luxury ocean going, no. Certainly, and on the Nile, it's not. Definitely not on the Nile. On rivers generally, it's not the same. You're paying top dollar for kind of a more kind of luxury experience, but not necessarily ultra luxury. Stein Volt Matchin, good to see you here. I'm actually looking at similar itineraries for the long term. Can you explain why you did opt for Oceania, other over ultra luxury lines? Is it just for video, or is Oceania objectively better? So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But one of the reasons we chose it, to be honest with you, was the timing worked really well. It covered more of the islands that we wanted to go to. And I quite like that class of ship. So we're going on Riviera. I haven't been on Riviera, but I've been on Marina, which is its sister ship. I quite like that ship. And also I did want Mark to try Oceania again. He'd only been on once on Insignia and wasn't really keen on the small R-class ships. So he was quite keen to try it. So it all sort of worked out, it covered the volume of islands that we want to. Some of the challenges with some of the others I looked at is they tend a little bit more to be kind of repositioning cruises. So they tend to be beginning, end of season. And sometimes some of them we looked at, so the timing wasn't right because we wanted to do it for Christmas. And also they didn't cover as many islands because they're trying to get the ship as quickly as possible from Australia to Papua up to Honolulu and onto the Alaska season, or vice versa. Whereas this is more of a slightly more leisurely cruise. There's not that many sea days. So actually, because we have 2 of the same days because we cross the international date line. So we have 2 days of the same date, both of which are ports, for example. So it was a mixture of things. It wasn't, this is one of the trips, because this is more of a trip that we're doing with, kind of with Mark, was less for the video specifically. And I need to really think through. I do want to, it will give me some good new B-roll for that small ship comparison thing. But, a lot of places I haven't been to. So, but that area of the world is probably not going to be massively popular from a perspective. So it's more a combination of it's something that Mark really wanted to do. The timing was right. It was calling a lot of the islands we wanted to go to. So that's why. So it's not necessarily that they're better. I do really like Oceania. I find the pricing also is way more attractive, of course, because there's less inclusions. Also for us, with the new Oceania keeps changing their fares. But with the current fare, they include wine and beer with lunch and dinner. They don't include drinks outside, but they do include soft drinks and stuff. So as non-drinkers, really, that works quite well. Mark does drink kind of cocktails, but not very many, so we're going to be buying 1 or 2. And it did also include gratuities as well, even though we don't have status. The other big plus, of course, which I'm still waiting for, is they do status matching. So that's going to be quite good. So the cabin we're going, we get some laundry and bits and pieces. Mark is heading off to the Philippines, so have a wonderful Christmas. So you're heading off the day after we did. Let's have a look. Jeff, received my October 2027 Japan cruise quotes from Walter. Great to see that you're working with Walter. He gave me choices including Oceania, Holland America, Princess, and Silver Sea. Do you recommend ocean view or balcony? Okay, so you've got a good spread of there from the premium lines to sort of luxury to ultra luxury lines. You've got a nice spread there. In reality, Jeff, a lot of it will hinge, which of those lines you choose, maybe I'll come back to. Your question specifically about ocean view or balcony. So a lot of it hinges obviously on your budget, and secondly, what you really want to achieve. So actually having a balcony on a Japan cruise doesn't necessarily add a lot, because it's not, you're not a lot of sailing scenery. You don't do any scenic sailing as such. Balcony, I love a balcony because I like sitting out on the balcony. I love going out when we come into port, going out of port. But obviously with ocean view, you can head up onto the balcony or head up onto the deck or whatever. So it's not for the scenery. It's more if you like a balcony, and particularly it's a lot of those Japan cruises are quite port intensive, with not that many sea days. So you may find you don't use the balcony a lot. So a lot of it hinges around kind of personal preference. A couple of comments on the type on those particular choices. Holland America Princess, obviously going to give you much more, it's the premium ships. It's going to have more kind of going on, value-wise better. But as you price it up, with all of these, in fact, all of them don't include excursions anymore. Excursions in Japan are pretty pricey. So take a look at, as you're doing your budget, make sure you look at just how costly those are, because you're going to want to do a lot of the excursions. Self-exploring is easier in Japan than it was. WorldSpan, Wi-Fi on Silver Sea. I know one device standard is included. If I want two devices running at the same time, do you know how I can use one free standard, one premium, or must both be premium? So on Silver Sea, the included Wi-Fi, you are obviously limited on what you can do. So you can't stream, you can't do video calls, you can't do WhatsApp video calling, and so on. So I'm trying to remember now, and maybe Boca Boys can remember this better than I do. But what I found is, I would have, because I've got two devices, so I had premium, I think, with two devices, I think, if I remember the deal, because I wouldn't have to always log out. But you can do, like I was on recently on Region at Silver Sea, is I could log in, say, on my iPad or my computer into the standard Wi-Fi, and I could log in on my phone on the premium, and I could switch those around. They don't both have to be premium. No, you can log in. Certainly, that was my experience. Now, Boys of Boca might have remember that better, because I've always upgraded to the premium side. I just wanted to write the word question so I don't miss it, because Paul asked a question, but I didn't miss it. What's the best time to cruise? What's the best time to cruise with Regent, and when do they go the best? Okay, cruising obviously depends totally, Paul, on where you're going. So obviously, so there's no best time to cruise with Regent. So it depends which region you're in, when you're going. In terms of best deals, the best thing to do with any cruise line is sign up for their email newsletters, because any deals, they will do that. Also follow them on social media. So you'll find, particularly on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram or on Facebook, make sure you interact with follow them, set it so you get notifications, but interact a little bit with cruise content. So any of their deals will pop up. So you'll get a lot of deals coming up now with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Also, the beginning of the year is wave season. So most of the cruise lines will have various stuff then. But often towards the end of the quarter, they might do various deals. But now's a pretty good time, because all cruise lines, there's a lot of bookings happening now and the beginning of the year. But follow their email newsletters, because things will pop up. Now, once you've been on Regent once, they also will send you loads of brochures. We get brochures probably, it feels like once a week. It's probably every 2 weeks, which will also talk about deals and so on. Patrick is asking the question around, would you say generally you prefer ocean cruises to river cruises? Absolutely, I prefer ocean cruises. I do enjoy river cruises. I haven't really enjoyed the Mekong, Nile that we were talking about a little bit earlier. I'm not as big a fan of European river cruising as much, maybe because I know Europe a lot better. But I like ocean cruising because there's just more choice. You can actually be a little bit more anonymous if you want to. On river cruises, obviously smaller. I find I prefer the places they go to, but I do just prefer the degree of choice. I find river cruising a little bit more restrictive it's a little bit more, I know people don't like it when I say this, fans of river cruising, but it's a little bit more escorted touring in a way. You are corralled a little bit more just because of the nature of the beast. And I prefer the flexibility of ocean cruising, especially. Klaus, what do you consider the better choice for expedition cruises, Silversea or Seabourn? Personally, I always gravitate towards Silversea. Seabourn is great, but Silversea has been doing true expedition for longer. The problem is they have different types of ships. They have 4 different kind of type of ships, so the experience does differ a little bit based on experience, with obviously Silver Endeavour being their newest ship and the most advanced, but they have very flexible, very good expedition team. In fact, one of my patrons have been sending me some messages today because they're just back from Antarctica. And Marika, who was in fact, Mark, who was on here earlier, I was mentioning earlier, we were on the same Antarctic cruise, and she was fantastic at going with the flow. But someone had messaged me how, in reality, they had lots of issues. Initially, some weather issues, then some mechanical issues, and just how proactive they had been to lay on extra things, exciting extra things, and then rejig the whole itinerary to get to see as much as possible. The Seabourn ships are very nice as well, but I would tend to gravitate personally towards Silversea. Jonathan asking around 3 days in Lisbon pre-cruise in late March, any recommendations for things to do in or near Lisbon? So actually, Jonathan, I actually have a video which I did a long time ago on the channel. So actually, if you go to the channel and search, a little searching and do Lisbon, you'll come up with things to do in Lisbon. But I've done a lot on the hop-on of bus, because it actually takes you to most of the key kind of sites. You need to see, takes you right up the hill, and I can't remember the guy's name now. You can also hear all about the history around kind of revolutionary times and whatnot. There's a very nice river cruise which goes right up past that very famous statue with the famous explorers. There's a very good food market. I think it's a Time Out food market and stuff like that. So if anyone's got better tips, I'm actually in Lisbon twice this year pre-cruise, so I probably need to brush up on those. But if anyone's got better tips, pop those in. Jeffrey, cruising for one. I've been reading recent reviews on MSC settings from Miami and hearing that Yacht Club is not as good as expected. Do you think this is a trend of lowering standards common? Jeff, in reality, I always find what's interesting is generally US cruisers are much more negative, generally speaking, around MSC than, say, European cruisers. So I haven't seen that Yacht Club is not as it used to be. I think maybe expectations are higher, but also I think sometimes I wonder, it's incredibly good value. So price-wise, it's nowhere near the price of, say, the Haven. It's absolutely nowhere near the price of the Haven on Norwegian. Even if you go Royal Caribbean, they don't have the same concept, but similar concept. Yacht Club is way cheaper, way cheaper. So I think sometimes there's an expectation thing, but certainly I haven't picked that up. I'm not sure that it's gone down, but I will kind of follow that a little bit more. But they're normally pretty consistent overall. I think the challenge being, of course, they've got bigger and bigger ships, say in Miami, and of course Yacht Club's getting bigger and bigger. So that could be part of the challenge. Is it probably feels a little bit less kind of explicit. Jeffrey, we're going to Japan in April, so that's nice. That's sort of around the blossom time. Is it worth going to Majima Lake? We do not dock at Hiroshima. I would, if you're in Osaka overnight, I would probably not. I would make sure you get into Kyoto, and I would do some of the touring of Osaka personally. But Kyoto is an absolute must. So you can do that on day one. And if they do have a quite nice excursion, there's quite nice stuff around Osaka, like Osaka Castle, which is very interesting. I would probably focus on that personally, a little bit more kind of on the historical side. It's Lou saying that Richard Henry also did Nile and Viking, preferred them. So that's interesting to know. I actually didn't pick that. That's right, they did. I forgot about that. Steve, planning to book a Nile for October 2028. Do you have any strategies for when to book? Also, is it enough to see while moving that a French balcony or similar is a must? Strategies in terms of booking, it's pretty much the same, I would say, as anything else that we were talking earlier. So if you've got a couple of lines that you have on your sites, sign up for email newsletters, even get kind of the brochures. So I've noticed, for example, like Viking, since we're talking about Viking, they are sold way out in advance. So if you've got a particular line that you're really keen on, it's probably worth locking in earlier rather than later. But look around now, Black Friday, look around beginning of the year, and again, sign up for those email newsletters, because that is when they kind of, any deals will come out. In reality, what surprised me, but surprised a lot of people, is you actually don't sell for very much when you're on the Nile. You actually don't cover very much distance at all. And so you're moored a lot. And so you don't necessarily need to have a balcony. Also, ships are docked side by side, even more so than in Europe. So if you do have the balcony, there's a strong possibility that you've got a ship next to you a lot of the time. And you're normally docked overnight a lot. So I had a sort of French balcony, but I actually found just being up top was perfectly fine. So the big watch out is, don't make the mistake I did. Also try and get a cabin mid of the ship, because when you're docked overnight and the ships are side by side, back to back, and the engines are very noisy and very fumy, and I had terrible noise problems, whereas people in the middle didn't. So that's probably more of a thing. I would be more midship rather than anything else if you're going to do one particular thing. Tim, lots of questions on river cruising today. We will be taking our first river cruise next fall to celebrate my brother's retirement. It's a classic Danube cruise, Budapest to Passau, which is, very classic on Amadeus. Any thoughts? So I would definitely, I don't know whether you're doing a pre and post day, but certainly, get to spend some time in Budapest. It's possible that you've got an overnight in Budapest. You get a chance to explore that. And I would make sure, I'm just thinking if there's anything on top of what I would do, because your excursion is going to be included. If Amadeus gives you a chance to look at the excursions and choice of excursions, take a look at the excursions, because one of the dangers on river cruise is it can become a little bit samey, the excursions. You can end up realizing you're walking around a town and looking at a cathedral. So what you might want to do is have a look at Amadeus, and I'm not been on Amadeus, so I don't know, but have a look at Amadeus and have a look at what excursions they're offering, both the included or optional ones, and try and plan it so that you've got a nice mixture and it's not all the same thing every day. Now, that itinerary normally means you will, obviously, Budapest, you'll get a chance to go to Bratislava, which I'd strongly encourage you. You get a chance to go to Vienna. So just try and look at kind of doing some more interesting things, so you're not just walking around a small town looking at cathedrals, probably, I would say. SL 4193, what destination or ship feature are you most anticipating during your trip? So in reality, let me bring this back up again, the actual itinerary. So, I mean, I love this, we've been to Bora Bora, Ioannina, Morea twice now, and I love that part of the world. So I'm looking forward to going back a lot. Now, of course, we're not going at the optimal time because this is sort of more rainy season. Now it's hot, and the rain is a little bit unpredictable. So it may not be quite as sunny as when we went in June previous times. I'm really looking at this. I'm really looking at this kind of area here, this Apia, Suva, Vanu, Nakula Lufa. I don't know a lot about them. I've done a little bit of reading about them, but they're so remote, not visited that much. And I'm just really intrigued by those places and some of the excursions there. But I'm actually looking forward to it. I love going to Sydney a lot, so I'm even looking forward to that. So that's from the destination perspective. So I think it's probably everything. Is probably what I'm saying. In terms of the ship experience, I'm just looking forward. I'm just hoping that I enjoy it as much as I did last time, and I'm also hoping that Mark enjoys it. Generally speaking, food is pretty good on Oceania. and you have quite a nice range of stuff. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing that again, and hopefully that's that kind of lives up to expectations. Let's have a look. Oh, I missed one. The Wu-Tang Life. Sorry. Looking to tour Japan is cursing. I guess we've been cruising a better option over land touring, or should it be a combination of both? Okay, so a lot of people I do know, and I've spoken to some of the people who are on here, sort of decided to lean towards land touring. I really liked cruising. I really like the cruising to get a feeling. Now, what I would just encourage you to do, though, if you're doing cruising, is getting one which covers almost as much as possible. So a lot of the cruises sort of go down that part of Japan, but actually you want to go all the way around to see many of the more remote places, the much more kind of diverse. What I would encourage is some pre-stay. So I did in both my trips to Japan. One I spent 4 days, and the next one, I think last time I spent 5 or 6 days, which also gave me a chance to go on the Shinkansen trains, to do day trips like to Nagoya, to go to the Kyoto Museum. You can actually do a day, head down to Kyoto, you can head up north, but I would definitely spend more time. Like Tokyo, you can easily spend 4 or 5 days there at least. So make sure you do spend it. I think it gives you a really good feel for it. It gets you to lots of places. But I would kind of not just fly in, do the cruise and fly out, and make sure you get one that goes all the way around if you possibly can. Patrick Philip, if you could pick 3 10-day cruises on different ships, or a 30-day cruise, save money, would you prefer the long cruise, or do you think you'd get bored? I wouldn't get bored on a long cruise. The longest cruise I've done is 7 weeks, and I wasn't bored at all, but a lot of it is around the destination. So if I was doing a 30-day cruise, in fact, I've got a 30-day cruise. I've got 2 30-day cruises, I think, booked next year. Let me just have a look. So yeah, I've got 2 30-day cruises booked, no, in 2027. I'm just looking at it here. So for example, I'm doing what's that? That's a 30-day cruise. In fact, I'm doing a 30-day cruise next year, which is 3/4 of the way around South America. So I'm going from Buenos Aires all the way around, doing an off-ship excursion to Machu Picchu, getting back on the ship, heading to the Panama Canal. And I'm really looking forward to that. So the reason I like that is because it's calling on loads and loads of ports. In 27, I'm doing a 30-day trip, which goes from Papeete up to Hawaii, does around Hawaii, then ends up in Vancouver. Again, it's around, there's lots of, choices around the ports. Then I'm doing another one in 27, where I go all the way from Vancouver. It does Alaska, and then does a massive big dive around Tokyo, looks at the north, and then does a whole sweep around there. So a lot of it hinges around where I'm going. So I would happily do 3 10-day cruises if each of the destinations was individual, if that makes sense. Hope I answered that. KB in the UK, good to see you here. Your Oceania trip looks superb. Hopefully it does. Do any of the resort brands do a similar one? So there are slight more limitations because some of those islands, they don't allow ships over, say, 1,500 or 1,000 something passengers to call. So it's more limiting. But there are a couple of lines, less so resort brands. So there is, when the Royal Caribbean repositioned their ship, which I think is Anthem, which they've got there at the moment, they repositioned that and they head back to Papeete. So I did follow some people who did that last year. They don't call on nearly as many islands. It's more sea days to get to Papeete, where they can dock, but they couldn't go to places like Bora Bora, for example. So again, it's more repositioning. What you can do, though, is Holland America, for example, has an itinerary which includes, again, some of those ports and places. In fact, Hetty, I think, might have done some of that as well. So they will call on more of those places. And Princess, I think, as well, have an option as well. Holland America has quite an interesting itinerary which goes out. It's quite a long itinerary. I think goes all the way up to Hawaii. It comes down. It does Papeete. It goes through the islands. And I think it's from San Diego to San Diego, if I remember correctly. But Holland America Princess, Royal Caribbean, but it's a reposition, so it doesn't do as many of those islands. And that, as I mentioned, it is pretty much repositioning. So yes, both have answered this. If your budget can stretch it and you can afford it, I would go for Silversea, but I would check the itinerary. So I haven't looked recently at the Silver Sea itinerary in Japan. You want to make sure that you're calling on a lot of ports, but if you can, Silver Sea is fantastic. You know, from a budget perspective, they will be the highest of all. Obviously, there's more inclusions. The tours will have smaller groups, so that's a big plus as well. So if your budget can stretch it, I would go Silver Sea. My second choice would probably be Oceania from that line. Let's have a look and see. Boys of Booker, thanks. You answered you answered most of the question, I think, which is great. Thank you. Appreciate that on the Wi-Fi. John Keyser from the US. So yeah, I probably should have said, I didn't say that. Did I say it last week? But Thanksgiving. I think hopefully I did. Anyway, from the US in the 70s, been on 20 cruises, mostly Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, which is also nice because you'll have built up status in the program. Want to move up to ultra luxury, Regent, Crystal, no ship within a ship. Should we try luxury class first? Well, John, one of the things I would suggest you look at, being on 20 cruises on Royal and Celebrity, you can actually get a status match on Silver Sea, which is more obviously ultra luxury. So you might want to look at Silver Sea because you will get potentially more perks. You might get some more discount on the fare, for example, depending on what status you are on those. You do have to apply for status match on that. So that is one thing to have a look at within the family, for example. And you might want to keep it in the family because, again, if you do Silver Sea is a great line. They have some very interesting ships, great itineraries. But the advantage is it's going to give you, again, with what you do, it's going to up your status with the other line. So if you decide you want to go back to Celebrity, do the ship within the ship, the retreat or whatever you're going to do, you're going to be building more into your kind of bank of perks, as it were. So I would give it if your budget does it, I would do the leap. The danger, of course, is once you've gone ultra luxury, it's very hard to go back. So I would definitely take a look at that. I mean, you're right. I've got that video, which I mentioned at the beginning, where I compare all the ultra luxury lines. So hopefully if you take a look at that, that may help you decide between the ones. But my gut feeling is really look at Silver Sea since you're kind of in the family, as it were. If you do want to try, if you say, okay, the budget's a bit much, I want to kind of do more of a stepping stone, take a look at like an Oceania. So you've got Vista, Allura, Marina, Riviera. So that's kind of, it's a 1,200, 1,250 for Marina, Riviera. Allura and Vista are 1,200. The advantage is, it's a slightly bigger ship. You do have more choice of dining restaurants. The entertainment, the daily program will be a little bit bigger. So it won't be as much of a shock coming from Royal Caribbean in terms of how fewer choices of venues and the daily program is. So that's a good option. Obviously, you've got Viking, you've got Windstar, and you've got Azamara in there. But if you were going to go luxury, I would focus more on Oceania because if you're a Royal Celebrity person, I think you might find Viking a little bit too staid. But if you're saying, I don't want to go Silver Sea because I think it's too big, I might be worried there's not enough going on for me, then do take a look at Oceania. I would say is the next best choice. I haven't done Easter Island, boys. I have not done Easter Island, and it's a place that I would like to go to. And you're right, I think I've seen the Seabourn Expeditions program. I haven't done it. I would really like to do it, definitely. So Kristen mentioning about they booked the higher cabin in the middle as per the recommendation. Oh, so good, because that made a huge difference. I didn't do the Jordan post because I had done Jordan separately a couple of years before that, pre-pandemic, where I did quite a deep dive, a land-based Jordan trip. So I'd been to Petra and was it Wadi Wadi and all sorts of things. It was about a 6 day, 5-6 day, went to the Dead Sea and so on. So which was fantastic, but I didn't actually do that. Buddy Wheels. Typically, sorry, I just want to go and get my water. I left it over there. And I'm back. So I just need to get a slug of water before I answer this question. Typically, what can a Cunard Queen's Crew butler do for you over and above a normal cabin steward? And do they expect gratuities? Let me talk about the gratuity piece first of all. So Unlike if you're on Norwegian Haven, where they make it explicitly clear that the butlers do not get tips from the tip pool, Cunard Queen's Grill butlers are included in the tips pool. So if you prepaid, they either you prepay or they do a daily charge for gratuities. So theoretically, they're covered. I found, though, attitudinally, if that's the right word, they kind of expect tips, but you don't have to give a tip because you have obviously tipped within the pool. So what do they actually do? Well, a couple of things they do. Obviously, they will come and meet you on your boarding day, and they will talk you through the cabin, and they'll do a couple of things. First of all, they will sort out your bar for you, because what you get on Cunard in Queen's Grill, you can choose 2 bottles of liquor, and for some reason they give you these massive 1-liter bottles. So gins and liqueurs, Baileys and Cointreau and whatever. So they'll come and sort out your mini bar and any kind of soft drink things that you want. They will do that. They'll also bring your canapes every evening. And if you do room service, it'll be served by the butler. So one of the advantages of having a butler is they will deliver the room service order. So they can also do course by course stuff if you want to eat your dinner there. But what I also quite like about room service is, unlike if you just place an order, put the thing out your door, and you put between 7 and 7:30, it could come anytime. You'll generally find if you've got a butler, they will come at the first thing, then 7 o'clock and whatever, and it's someone familiar, coming to the cabin. They will also do some pressing for you on the first day. They will unpack and pack for you, which I've never ever done. Did I mention bring canapes every night? If you did want to order something like you want a caviar or something for your canapes, they will do that. They will also sort out reservations, but there's not really many because you don't have lots of special dining and stuff like that. What they don't do, which you say you're on the Haven or other things, is they don't meet you dockside and escort you to your cabin. What you find on like Haven is you meet in a specific area and the butlers escort you up, or if you're in your club, the butlers escort you up. They don't escort you to the theater because there's no reserved seating, for example. So they will normally be your kind of point person. So if there's anything you want sorted, if you've got a problem in your cabin, they will normally sort it quicker and easier than talking to your cabin steward. Do they do anything else? What was quite interesting, I should probably dig it out, is when we went last time I was on Queen's Grill, which is on Queen Anne, they had a little thing in the room which told you what the butler did. I think they should always do that because it's one thing that people don't really know how to do. We don't really use the butler lock. So other friends of ours who travel on Cunard quite a lot, they get their butler to sort out. They will host a cocktail party and stuff like that, and they get the butler to sort all that out. I've never done that. I've never done that. KB in the UK, if you have Wi-Fi included, would it be a waste to sign up to Gig Sky? I would need it to make calls on sea days. So Kevin Ali, no, you shouldn't. Not if you've got a streaming Wi-Fi. So in most cases, it needs to be streaming Wi-Fi for most things. Obviously, Gig Sky is you can't do normal phone calls, landline phone calls. You're going to need to do over Wi-Fi calls. So Gig Sky doesn't do calls. I think I'm right in saying that. So you still really want to either be doing WhatsApp calls, or if you're calling landlines, do what I do, which is I'm looking it up now, but I used to use Skype, which of course is gone, but I found a really good other app, which I'm now not going to find here, called Yolla, Yolla. So I now use that to do land calls. So when my mum was alive, I used to use Skype to call her because she only did landline calls. But Yolla is very inexpensive, and I use that now to do landline calls. I've done that from the ship on ship Wi-Fi, which has worked really, really good. Patrick, you got into cruising as a hobby and successfully started your YouTube channel. Does it feel like a hobby? So I got into cruising not so much as a hobby. I got into cruising because I got into cruising originally because I was asked to go and talk on a ship on a marketing conference, and it was like so many people, I thought I never want to cruise. Then I went on a ship and was like, wow, this is really good. And always from a small age, I did want to go on QE2. So I decided, right, I want to do it. And so we started doing more and more cruising as vacations. So we used to do a lot of the short Cunard trips, or we did kind of transatlantics. We did Cunard, their crossing, and Christmas in the Caribbean stuff. YouTube was the hobby. That's probably what you mean anyway. So cruising started as a vacation. YouTube channel was just a hobby because I was kind of interested in it. It's absolutely become a job without a shadow of a doubt, because I will work on it full time. Like this week, I'll start working on stuff I need to do on the channel, like at 9 o'clock, and I'll work till 6 o'clock or something. Obviously I have breaks and stuff like that. Today I spend most of the day working on the channel, sorting out videos, writing scripts, working on thumbnails, etc., etc. So it is a full-time job. I work at least 5-6 days a week full-time on the channel. Partly because when I'm away, obviously I'm videoing more and more downtime, going on excursions. So when I'm home, I work on it full-time. So it's absolutely a job, but it's still like a hobby job, if you like, because I'm doing it because I love doing it. Jacob, I haven't been on Pride of America. I would like to go on Pride of America because I would like to do more of Hawaii. So I did have a look at it. I have been partly through Hawaii on Cunard Queen Victoria, but we only called in to 2 places, which is why I've actually booked. I did look at Pride of America and I had mixed views about it, but I wanted to do it. But getting from here to Hawaii is such a long trek, because you have to fly to LA, and then of course if you do a cruise, it's 6 days to Hawaii, a couple of days in Hawaii, 6 days back. So there's a lot of downtime. So I decided I needed to kind of think of that. So that's why I've actually booked for 27. It's part of a repositioning cruise that I mentioned earlier, if you were here earlier. So I'm going from Papeete. It's a couple of sea days, and then it's doing, I think it's 7 or 8 ports in Hawaii. And what's nice is then on Silver Sea, it's on their small ship, Silver Whisper. But I'm really looking forward to doing more of Hawaii. So in terms of, I've only been to Honolulu and I've been to Maui. So I don't have any better tips because I haven't done it. So if anyone's got better tips, please do pop those in. Came just back from Viking Antarctica, which is fantastic. Okay, Ken goes cruising. Yes, I have. I haven't kept as up on it as I should have, to be honest. But I have heard this stuff about industrial action and shifting turbine. I thought it had died down. I haven't seen anything because I track all the different new stuff. I haven't seen that flaring up again. I thought it was more in the season, but I haven't seen it. I thought it died down, so I will keep an eye on that. So fingers crossed that you get in. Let's have a look. Stein Voldmatchin, how's the Amazon dress code? Explora, interested in Manaus, Brazil to San Juan, one-way itinerary. Have some pre-cruise explorations in Amazon, and packing will be challenging. So Stein Voldmatchin, they don't really have a dress code on Explora sort of as such. It's very kind of designed to be kind of casual. I found it's interesting because it gets quite a lot of European travelers on, and when I was on, we were in the Med, so people did dress relatively kind of smart, trendy, but it wasn't particularly dressy. No, I wouldn't worry about that. And you have the option of going to the buffet, the beautiful buffet, the marketplace, Emporium in the evenings if you don't really want to dress up at all. But it wasn't particularly dressy, and I think I need to double check, but I'm pretty right in saying that there's no real dress code on it, and it wasn't particularly dressy. And in my experience, on any of these trips, which are doing these kind of trips, are less likely to be dressy anyway. It's interesting that there's a real shift. Like an Oceania, Regent, you can wear jeans to dinner now on those. Then they're sort of luxury, ultra luxury lines. Jeans are fine, polo shirts are fine. And like on this itinerary we do now, I know people won't dress. We're not taking jackets. In fact, Mark's, I think, taking one long sleeve shirt even. I'm taking more because I like wearing long sleeve shirts to dinner. This is an interesting one. I hadn't really thought about this, but Christopher Niehaus, selling Princess in February. We have the Premier package with premium Wi-Fi. Should we be worried about data security while online with the network? So I have never heard of any issues, to be honest. I've never worried about it. You know, you could, if you want to, you could, I guess, use VPNs. They certainly work on the premium Wi-Fi when I'm there, because I use VPN when I've been on Princess, because I want to stream some local shows to keep it up with. But certainly, I don't think you need to be worried. I've never thought about it, to be honest, because I've never seen anything on that. So, you know, obviously, if you're worried about it, I would take kind of more precautions. But I've done all sorts of stuff on there, and touch wood, it hasn't come back to bite me. And certainly in all the years following it, it's never been reported as an issue with people on there having issues. It's Starlink Wi-Fi. So no, I think you should be relatively comfortable. Booked Viking Arctic, Norway and Iceland for August. Very nice itinerary. Have you been on that cruise? Any suggestions? So I haven't been on the Viking Norway to Iceland. I've done Windstar Norway to Iceland. I've actually done Voyage to Antiquity in Norway to Iceland. And I've done Iceland separately. So, and that itinerary is quite a popular combination. I don't know, if you're heading out of Edinburgh or where you're heading out of for that. I know with you starting and going to do Norway and ending in Iceland. The only thing I would say is, you know, it can be a little bit bumpy, the sea between sort of Norway and Iceland, or the UK to Iceland. So if you worry a little bit about bumpy seas, just be ready for that, have whatever precautions you might take for that. The other thing I would say with Viking is Viking cruise passengers are very on the ball. So they release both specialty dining bookings and excursions bookings based on kind of your grade of cabin. But what I would say, Cayman, is make a note in your diary or whatever you use on the date and time that bookings open for excursions and open for dining, and be there when they open if you possibly can. Now, it's quite annoying because sometimes it opens at a ridiculous time, because in the UK, it works well for people East Coast and Pacific time zones, but lousy for UK. But I've sometimes stayed up a little bit if it's not too crazy, because Viking people are in there, they're booking the specialty dining, the times of they're booking the excursions. So you want to make sure that you get those locked in. That's the first thing. Well, the second thing, whatever I said. The third thing is that also you may want to look, or may need to look, at the added on excursions, because Viking may not do the optimal excursions as included excursions. So for example, you want to do things like the Golden Triangle out of Reykjavik, you want to do Jewels of the North, which those are sort of the names of excursions, because they're all-day excursions. So they're quite tiring, but they take you inland to see the key sites, the geysers, the big Godafoss waterfalls, the bubbling sulfur mud pits, and so on. You don't want to miss any of those, the Mailand Lake and so on. You don't want to miss any of those. So take a look at the excursions, both included and the add-on ones. And you may find, because some of the kind of premium excursions, you may want to pay for some of the excursions. And some of them, I don't know if Viking do, but I did when I was on Saga, for example. They did an incredible excursion where you go on these trucks up the glacier. There's special trucks that drive up glaciers. So really interesting excursions. That would be the one of the key things that I would say. Steinwell mentioned another question. What would you advise visiting Christmas markets in Dutch, Germany, Belgium, or Luxembourg? First edition. As Lou said, you know, the Christmas markets on the Danube are fantastic. The Christmas markets on the Rhine River cruise are fantastic. I assume you're talking about going on river cruising, but you know, certainly Germany is kind of most renowned, I guess, for Christmas markets. Like in London, they'll often do German Christmas markets. They're kind of I guess they're seen as the A team. I've been to quite a few Christmas markets in Belgium, both in Brussels and in Bruges. They're pretty good, but in Brussels is really good. I haven't been to ones in Luxembourg. The Dutch ones are also pretty good. But certainly, you know, there's fantastic river cruises there. The Wu-Tang Life asking me, are there any cruises that you've not done that are on your bucket list? I have loads of cruises, believe it or not. So I don't, maybe I can bring it up here. If it's top of the list, let's see if I can do that quickly. What I do is I have on my phone, whenever I'm traveling, and I go to places and I meet people and discover places. So I was hoping it was going to come up here. Let's just put it in. I write a list of all the ships, places that I want to go. So this here, I have a list of all the ships that I want to go on, all the destinations that I haven't been that I still want to go to, and cruise lines that I want to go to, and then lots of trains. So as you can see, there are loads and loads and loads of places. So in terms of destinations, I want to do places like I want to go to the Ganges, I want to go to the Mississippi, Hawaii I mentioned earlier, I want to do the Great Lakes, I want to do the Suez Canal desperately for that opening. I keep seeing lines advertising that, but I don't want to book a Suez Canal till I know that's happening. I want to do more Lake Kariba, there's some nice across Europe trips there. There's so many more places, expedition stuff. So there are a lot, and it just keeps growing basically. Mark and Misha B. Windsock Cruises. I like Windsock Cruises. I've got a couple of videos on my channel about Windsock Cruises. I have a cruise next year. I haven't done their sailing ships yet, so I'm booked in May to do the sailing ship. It's way overdue. What I like about Windsock Cruises, I mean, they're obviously quite small ships, about 400 passengers, if I remember correctly, which most of the old seaborne ships that are cut and they've now stretched. So I've been on 3 of them. Now, they are very laid back. It's very much about the destination. The people who go on there are very focused on the destination. They're about visiting places. The cabins are pretty nice, the ships are pretty nice, the food is pretty nice, the crew are pretty good. But some of you go on there for a very small ship experience. It's very intimate. It's kind of relaxed, laid back. I like Windsock Cruises. They do some great, they're particularly very strong in like French Polynesia. If even in places like the Caribbean and stuff, they'll try to go to a little bit more unusual ports. But they're great. I'm really looking forward to doing the sailing ship experience. Let's have a look. Tom, I'm on Crystal Symphony. I like Crystal Symphony. Tokyo to Vancouver in June. Have you ever done that North Pacific at that time of the year? So the question is what to expect weather-wise. So I have not done it in June. I did it in September, so which I did the other way around, because I was doing the end of the season, I guess, heading the other way. So basically speaking, I mean, the sort of Bering Sea has a reputation for always kind of being a little bit choppy in the middle. So you're going to have a couple of days, more than likely will be a little bit kind of choppy and inclement. Is that the right word? But I don't know specifically in June, but everyone I know, whenever I read it, they talk about being a little bit kind of bumpy. The thing that you will find, which will be quite interesting, is you're going to have a lot of short days. Because between Tokyo and Vancouver, there's something like a 7 or 8 hour time difference. And you are, of course, crossing the international date line the opposite way to what I was doing, where we had longer days. So every day we were turning the clocks back for 8 days in a row, pretty much. So we kind of had these longer days. So it was quite nice because you'd go to bed and it was an hour, you got an hour back, as it were. But it did throw people kind of a little bit, because you find people waking up really early. So breakfast was opened at 7 or 8 or whatever. There's always loads of people because people wake up at an early. You're going to be losing an hour. So you might find that kind of a little bit more tiring. But you've got lots of sea days to kind of to relax into that. So Kathy West, they do have some docks. Just talks about that. I don't think every dock is unique, but they do have some. So certainly I did see that, like in Aswan, for example, I could see they had their own dock, definitely. I've been asking what category is Hapag-Lloyd. Hapag-Lloyd really they're really more in the sort of the ultra luxury side. So obviously they're the expedition side, but certainly Europa 1, Europa 2 are, just looking at the price, are sort of in that ultra luxury category. What's interesting in Hapag-Lloyd, they used to have Inspiration and Expedition, which was their international ship, and Europa 1, Europa 2, which I went on, which was the international. They're making all of their ships international. So the idea is that Europa 1 and the other expedition ships were basically German speaking only, and they're evolving that now. I can't remember when they're doing that from, but they announced that quite recently. They really are in that kind of ultra luxury side, and they definitely try to attract a more international audience as such. Have you cruised New England, Atlantic coast of Atlantic on a premium line, and if so, any recommendations to solo travel? Yes. So my group cruise that I did was on Celebrity. We did that exact trip where we actually went out of Boston, went all the way to Quebec and all the way back to Boston. I'm actually doing it again on Celebrity, although it's part of a more repositioning, setting up New York, doing some of that New England coast, but then heading Greenland and ending up in Iceland. So definitely Celebrity did a pretty good job on it. Not surprising, that's why I'm kind of going back on it. But Holland America do some very nice trips, very nice routes as well, as do Princess. But certainly I was pretty impressed with the Celebrity experience. But Holland America, looking at, I had originally in pandemic had it booked on Holland America, and they were using their even smaller ships then, which kind of appealed to me. They sold those ships to Fred Olsen, and I never got quite, because with Canada, as you know, were slower in terms of opening for cruising again. So it just got lost, and I ended up doing on Celebrity. And very nice. Jeffrey said they did an okay job. Sorry, solo. That was the point. So in terms of solo, the reason to look at Celebrity, Caleb, is they every now and again do these promotions where second person is 70% off or 50% off. So I booked, now not for my group cruise, you don't know which Jeff is referring to, but that cruise I'm referring to on Celebrity Silhouette, I basically got a solo deal effectively of 30% because I bought that deal with second person is 70% off, but there was no second person, so I just got 30%. So it's an incredibly good price. Really good price as well. No, this is interesting. Greg making the point. Seems to be a rash of cruise ships having propulsion problems. Do you have any insight of what's going on? No, it's very interesting. I thought the same as well. So those who picked it up, there's everything from Queen Mary 2's had it. There's lots of ships in the Caribbean at the moment are slowing down, cancelling departures and so on. I don't know what's going on. I know coming out of the pandemic, where I did pick it up, where there were a lot of issues at that time, the argument was because a lot of ships have been in, I always get what's called wet or dry layup. So kind of all the engines weren't necessarily all running and stuff. They were basically ticking over. And so when they got back into full service, they had lots of issues. But it does seem very strange. I don't know what's going on, but I have seen a lot of it. And there doesn't seem to be any commentary. Certainly all the cruise trade stuff that I'm picking up, they're not talking about a kind of a common theme around it. So no, but I'm definitely something I'm keeping an eye on as well. It does seem kind of interesting that there's so much of it, so much going on. Okay, good question, Jeff. I see it's been a while since you posted on Blue Sky. What social platforms are you active on now? I probably did what most people did, is I thought I'd better try Blue Sky when everyone got their knickers in a twist about Twitter/X. And I posted on Blue Sky, and I didn't enjoy Blue Sky at all. I didn't like the recommendation. I just didn't enjoy time on Blue Sky, and very bizarre recommendations. I kind of went back and found X. Just everyone talks about X, about all this terrible stuff on X. I don't get that. I don't get that in my feed, so I don't know what I'm doing that I don't get, or what other people are doing that they get all this terrible stuff in their feed. So I don't post. I'm more of a reader on X, I guess. I don't post a lot on X. I'm most active on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram when I'm on a trip. When I'm on a trip, I will post multiple stories per day. So, and normally what happens, I know I post a lot because what I do on I'll show you on my Instagram. So what I do on Instagram is on your Instagram profile. Why is it doing it? It's coming up really slowly for some reason. Okay, so on your Instagram profile, you can have all these. Like features bits where I add all the stories to for a trip, but you can only put 100 of those in there. So every trip I go on, I run out of 100. I put more than 100. So every day I'm going to post 3, 4, 5 or more stories covering, you know, the ship, the food, the excursions, whatever. So when I'm on a trip, I'm very active. When I'm not on a trip, I don't really post a lot. I don't, so I don't post a lot. And Facebook, my Tips for Travelers, is relatively active as well because it posts across there. So Instagram is where I'm posting the most, and Facebook is where I'm posting quite a lot. Jeffrey asking, plans to go on Margaritaville? I don't have any plans at the moment. It needs to be synchronized with when I'm in like Miami or whatever. So I'm in Miami a couple of times this year, but it doesn't work because I'm doing the group cruise, but it'll be in San Diego, and I don't want to go before the group cruise because I'll be too organized, and then going back to Miami later in the year when I get off. But I've been then for a month on a trip and without Mark, and I feel like I need to get home for that. And then I'm there later in the year, but I actually added on Virgin Voyages. Brilliant lady. I had a choice. What do I do? I try Margaritaville, but I feel a lot of people have covered that recently. I really want to travel, update my Virgin Voyages. So I decided when I get to Miami, I'm going to do Virgin Voyages. So I don't have any plans as such. So, but I cover it actually in an upcoming video about they are getting really good reviews and ratings at the moment. Really interesting. When they first kind of went to service, they got very mixed reviews. Now just people really like them. I guess they found their right audience or something like that. Right, we have churned through time. Thanks so much for joining me. So thanks so much for the incredible questions. As I mentioned, there will be no live stream until January the 4th or whatever it is, when I'm back from the trip. But building on Jeff's question, I will post it on Instagram. I'll post to patrons. I'll post kind of on-cruise updates, videos, and bits and pieces. But if you want to keep up to date, Instagram is probably the key place to do that. I do post sometimes sort of in the YouTube feed, but it gets lost a lot. So that would be the key thing. Have a look at that video. By the way, videos coming out every week when I'm away. They're all scheduled up and lined to go. Have a great Christmas. Hopefully you're going cruising. Have a great new year. And I will see you next year for a live stream. But you can follow and keep up with me, of course, with the videos and with Instagram or wherever. Take care. Thanks.